Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. And Sarah Evans, Sarah's an old friend, and really excited you could join us here on our Muckrack live chat. Welcome, Sarah.
I am so happy to be here. It's pretty easy now that my battle station is from my home dining room table. I am at your disposal.
And tell us, for anyone who doesn't know, tell us who you are and what you do and where you are right now in the world.
So I am in lovely Las Vegas. Obviously, an economy hard hit right now. I own a digital PR company, but I also work as a brand correspondent and consultant in the digital space. So I've had a very fun crossover of jobs over the past 11 years that my company has been in existence. And luckily, we are working with great clients right now who are obviously impacted by COVID-19, but who have products, resources, tools that are essential or needed right now.
Thanks for sharing that. I just realized I forgot to introduce myself, but for anyone who doesn't, I'm Greg Gallant, co-founder, CEO of Muckrack and the Shorty Awards, and really glad everyone was able to tune in. So, I think it's perfect having you on from Vegas because, of course, the travel sector is one of the hardest hit, and that's what Vegas is all about, right? People traveling there, entertainment. So, what's your advice for folks who are impacted by this and kind of having to in PR and are the ones responsible for communicating in a crisis like this?
It's really difficult. It's really hard for a lot of folks right now. I have a lot of PR counterparts here in Las Vegas who 100% focused on hospitality and had their client rosters essentially wiped out overnight. They don't necessarily know when they'll be working again. One of the things our team has been doing is to bring some of those people on to support us in other industries in the interim, because they still are technically employed, but they might not have their client roster, or they've cut their fees exponentially. So we're working with them in that way. But for those who are experiencing it, one of the things I've been doing just on a back end, and many of my peers have been doing as well, is looking for other ways we can integrate them into our current client mix or help them develop or build new skills outside of hospitality and travel. And then I have other friends who work in kind of tangentially touching hospitality, who are still fully employed and are inundated with the number of hours that they're working right now due to the sheer media cycle, the number of stories coming out, sources. Earlier this week, just a few days ago, Las Vegas was trending on social media, if you watched that Anderson Cooper interview, and it caused a lot of triaging and communication needs for many in the city and in the state.
Yeah, and so let's first start with, for those people who are, we've seen this with good number of our customers where they have an agency. It's been all travel, and they're just in a lot of trouble right now. And I know you've had a very diverse career and reinvented yourself many times. What's your advice to people who come to you and it's like, look, all my customers have canceled, put everything on hold. What do I do? How do I make money?
Number one, I listen. Sometimes people, it's like that stranger on the train. I'm not maybe a close friend or family member, but it's someone who just needs to listen. Let them express the sorrow and the sadness. I mean, I've seen people weeping in their driveways, mourning for the loss of their careers, because they love it so much, and it really, hits me hard. One of the things that I try to do is just talk about where their passion points are, where they have skill sets. And because so many PR folks are networked in Facebook groups or LinkedIn groups, we can put out requests to support those folks, to look to see who needs freelance support. There are so many out-of-work journalists and PR folks right now that have such a high caliber of professionalism, the ability to write and create content, that there's perhaps a need for them in a freelance position. So it's all about networking right now and connecting the right people together, looking for resources and opportunities, or even looking for new positions within agencies that are hiring because they're seeing an influx of clients who are also impacted by COVID-19, but are increasing business or sales because their products are needed.
Yeah, that's a good point. And kind of on that note, with one of the things we're talking about here is empathetic communication. How do you recommend, because on one hand, everyone's under all this pressure to drive business and keep the economy going as much as they can, keep their business with enough revenue to support their payroll, but at the same time, it's really hard because it's not just an economic crisis; it's a humanitarian crisis, and then people who we know have been impacted and just totally lost their income. So, how should marketers, someone, be it from the CMO to the person who's stuck having to write the marketing email, think about that, and what do they have to keep in mind when crafting marketing messages?
Greg, it is obviously a very difficult time, and I don't have all the answers. What I've done is that because I'm actively working still, is that I'm learning, watching, seeing how I experience things as a human just in my inbox every day. I was saying to a friend the other day, there was a clothing company who sent out a mass text message that was like, sick of wearing sweats, check out these new looks for the week. And it was all, heels and jewelry and bags. And I'm like, who's wearing these things right now? Like, it just felt very tone deaf and off purpose right now. One of the things that we've done is to create an emotional compass and look at the actual emotions the majority of folks in the world are experiencing right now: joblessness, being furloughed, sick family members, frustration, isolated, loneliness, and making sure that our messages aren't contradicting those messages or looking for ways to help because of those things. On the PR side, we're very much earned and organic, so we're trying to be mindful of those things, and we're encouraging our clients to do so as well. So if one of your messages goes against those things, that's appearing tone deaf and can actually do damage to your brand. And as PR folks, we are supposed to be the hub and kind of the beacon and the guiding light behind a lot of that messaging.
And how do you recommend people who kind of aren't used to being digital first? I mean, you've been quite the innovator in getting on social media platforms way early on. But I know, a lot of the people who are now who weren't so digitally savvy, they're now stuck at home. And of course, when we're at home, all we have is digital. So what's your advice to people who are maybe, excellent at their job and excellent at PR, but just not very used to digital?
Number one, seek out the people who are really good. Ask them for 15 minutes of their time. I find right now people are more giving than ever. I myself, and I know several of my peers, have been giving and donating time to SMBs who are really struggling and letting them just ask us anything. What do they need to cope right now? What tools are important to them for moving online? I know there's several tools and resources being packaged together for those folks. But number one, ask someone who you know is really good at it. Number two, set aside time on your calendar to actually do some learning, whether it's experiential or practicing or making a list of questions, simply questions that you have where you're finding points of frustration. I mean, sometimes it's simply about the tools you have access to. I have a triple monitor set up, and by no means is that meant to brag, but it's a workflow process. And of course, Muck Rack is always pulled up on my kind of workflow screen, along with all of the tools that we need to do outreach and monitor and look, with the centralized screen being reserved for email communications. I currently use Shift to stream all of our email addresses, Telegram, Slack channels, Zoom, Calendly, all those tools that we use, and the left monitor is all dedicated to social. A PR role is very wide, very diverse. So many times moving from a office desktop to a home laptop can simply feel frustrating because of the lack of real estate or just the sheer maneuvering of your hand and wrist because you're used to an external mouse or keyboard. So looking at those types of things, thinking about your goals and communicating with your leadership, if you have that access, of where those points of frustration are, because things have changed, expectations need to change. Typically, one of my children runs in during these live streams, and I have gotten to the point now that when my 3-year-old yells she has to go to the bathroom and she needs mommy to come help her, I've left a live interview last week to go do that because that's just part of the new norm, and I had to, just learn to accept that.
Yeah, it's well said. I've seen people tweeting it's kind of the ultimate work-life integration is happening now, whether people like it or not.
Is what it is.
Yeah, I'm feeling kind of inadequate now. I only have 2 monitors at home. I got to
up the game.
Think about adding a third. Yeah, if I want to keep up with everything. And how have you seen things change with how you have to interact with journalists now? There's so many stories, and every journalist is working from home too. What's different?
So different. So just before I got on this call, I was on LinkedIn talking to a New York Times writer who writes in the travel industry, who's still getting a lot of pitches, but she was actually reaching out to me to see if I can help support her alma mater internship program this summer. Kids are going to need virtual or digital internships. What's that going to look like? So one of the things that I've done when we talk about empathy is just having real conversations with folks. We're not always pitching, but I have found some great stories that have come just from having a conversation. How are you doing? What can I do to support you? I, like you, Greg, am passionate about journalists and journalism and the quality of journalism that we have access to. And because so many are out of work, I'm looking to see where can we support them? Can we get them freelance writing jobs? Are there people like the Economic Hardship Foundation that are giving out grants? Where are all these tools and resources living? Reaching out to ONA, the Online News Association, becoming a member there, subscribing to local outlets that may need that money. So I'm kind of frantically searching many times, but also at a very simple level, just doing personal outreach.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And when have you seen with personal outreach now, and both with people and people that you want to get advice from or develop relationships with, what are your tips for kind of just approaching new people? And has it changed now? You can't ask them out for coffee. Do you say, can we get on a call? Do you say, can we get on a Zoom? Like, what's your kind of new cadence for that kind of networking?
What I've been doing? I'm like, hey, do you want to meet? I'm going to buy you a coffee or buy you something. Do you want Uber Eats, DoorDash, or Postmates? And I send them a gift card, and that way we can have our meal over chat or a coffee over chat. But I want to give something. And if I have the means to do that, I'm going to keep doing that. Even if it makes someone smile, just to have something delivered to their door, that's my way to go.
That's a great way to do it. So you can still share a meal with somebody or buy someone lunch, even if you're remote.
Absolutely. And it's fun.
It's great. What do people need to do to up their video game? I mean, you've got great lighting there. You look like
don't listen to me today, but
rolling.
I actually have a green screen being delivered this weekend, and I know Natan has one. We did a live stream last week, but he couldn't get it in the room he was in. So usually I recommend having something like that behind me. But if you know a videographer in your life, you can even ask them to do a quick call with you to just frame your shot. I have a ring light off to the side, so I do concentrate on good lighting to have that, usually creating some dimension behind me. If you're doing anything that is on video. If you actually look at the NBA draft that happened, the NBA, I'm still in like the Last Dance momentum. Now we had, NFL draft yesterday. They did some great video moments, and a lot of the commentators had some good backdrops behind them. And you can look at any on-air commentator right now. Expectations have definitely changed. It's not the super professional backdrop, but something that shows maybe a little more humanity, a little bit of your home, because you're essentially inviting people into your home. This is my dining room, and I'm kind of locked and loaded that this is where I have to be. So following some of the same principles for great video, but setting up a space that works for you, and then looking at all of the best practices happening on TV and web right now.
Yeah, and I love that idea of getting a pro to watch with you, and it's great that you can get that reaction in real time.
I mean, there are people now, I know stylists who are becoming virtual stylists to help people plan their on-camera appearance. Obviously, I did not take advice. I grabbed my white suit jacket to really up the game today.
You look very sharp. I think you're bringing a whole new level to our comment here. So Well, we always keep these to 15 minutes, so we want to make sure we end on time and give everybody time of their day back. But Sarah, thanks so much for jumping on, and it's great to see you. I'm sure we would have otherwise hung out at South by as we always do. So this is the virtual version of that, and maybe we can each order barbecue sometime.
I'm gonna send you after this. I'm gonna send you a lunch.
Oh, you don't need to send me the lunch, but let's coordinate eating a lunch, and we'll each order. We'll have to promise to each order barbecue.
Okay, you got it.
All right, great to see you, Sarah.
Nice to see you. Thanks, Greg.
All right, have a great one. Bye bye.